Hello, everyone. My name is Zachariah Van Sliders with Old Man Gaming. We're coming to you special with a special broadcast. And with me today is my Borderlands 330 partner, our resident Borderlands 3 expert, Borderlands Build King. Uh, Introduce yourself.
Philbilly330. How's it going, guys?
We are here to just doing a little video to talk about the new stuff coming to Borderlands 3, the ups and downs of the Borderlands show. But before we get into that, I just want to do a quick disclaimer. I sound terrible. I apologize to everybody about that. I'm still coming out of this flu thing. It just sits in my larynx because I talk too much. So apologize ahead of time for my voice. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So the Borderlands show was today. They were talking all sorts of stuff. They were talking level cap increase, seasonal event. They were talking toggles and switches and all sorts of stuff. So we're going to go over it with you guys. We're going to try and keep some of the positive stuff to the front, some of the negative stuff to the back. So
just for you guys as a disclaimer for me, if you watch the show, know that I am a huge Borderlands fan, and I do my best to stay positive and enjoy the game, and that's why what we get to at the end of the show, it bothers me to say some of this, because I know watching other YouTubers and listening to comments, I get a little annoyed at times at how negative sometimes the community can be, and you're going to see a little negativity from me, and maybe you guys can help me out in the comments and convince me that this isn't as big of a deal as I see it as it is, or you can agree with me or tell me I'm wrong, but I'm just saying we're open to discussions in the comments, because this is something that, at least to me, is a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have some big negatives, but we are going to point out some positives too.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not going to be all negative. And yeah. I want to say, not coming from Phil, Phil is the biggest proponent of Borderlands 3. It's his mission to get everybody to play this game. So if he has something negative to say about it, I think that is honestly worth a video unto itself. So that's why we're doing it today. So let's go over some of the positive stuff right off the bat. I just want to take the first mention, if that's okay with you, Phil.
Go for it.
Something that's been bothering me for a long time is the Fight for Your Life revive system has just been god awful. We've actually mentioned it in our show, Borderlands 330, a couple of times. I've been killed trying to rescue you, and they actually announced that they're working on improvements to that. So, right off the bat, I'm going to point out something positive. I'm really happy to hear that. That's really exciting for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a great a great thing that came from this. There's a lot of great things that come from this. One other thing, the availability to skip cutscenes. They're finally introducing that into the game. And they're introducing it, from what it sounds like, it's all cutscenes, and it's whether you've seen them or not. And that's great, especially if you need to take your characters through true Vault Hunter mode, and maybe you've been holding off because of the redundancy of watching all that stuff again. And I mean, that's great. It's another great thing that Gearbox is doing. They listen to the community.
I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm a casual player. I'm nowhere near your level, and I'm still working through my fourth character, and I'm getting kind of sick of the cutscenes. So it's definitely a good thing. I hope they don't make it too easy to skip the cutscenes, because I'm a big fat idiot and I don't want to accidentally skip the cutscenes in our show. I'm so afraid of that now that's going to happen. Some more good stuff that they have that we want to get through before we get to the negative, because I know we're going to be talking about the negative for a bit. They're adding a true takedown mode, so they're going to take that. Right.
Yeah,
so they're going to take the takedown back to its high difficulty if you want it, but they're going to give you the option. Either good, in my opinion, because that's what I wanted all the way along.
It's the best way
They
to
are
do it because no one's gonna be upset about that. If you, heck, I mean, I love it because I can play on the high difficulty when I want to, and if I just want to farm the raid and don't want to take as long and want to speed through it, I can go back to the easier difficulty. It's great.
right. Right. Um, they're also doing some. I'm kind of skipping over the performance
Yeah,
stuff that because performance is performance. They're always going to be fixing that. But they're doing event toggling and guardian rank toggling. We'll get to the event toggling in a sec, but guardian rank toggling meaning you can actually turn off the extra abilities you get from guardian rank. Personally, I don't know why anyone would want to do this. Maybe you do.
Yeah, I can tell you actually. Okay, so a couple of reasons, and this is a good thing. Number one, speed running. I'm not into it, but some people are, and up until now, it's been impossible because you can't rightfully speed run a game if not everyone's on the same playing field because your times,
Right.
like you can argue time variations. So
Good
that's
call.
one reason. Another reason is, for instance, like I've always wanted to make a melee flak build. I have the idea in my head, but I happen to unlock a guardian skill that when I kill an enemy, it immediately starts recharging my shields. Well, for a melee build, I want to use a roid shield where I get the bonus damage when my shield is broken.
I
Well, if I
see.
killed somebody and my shield starts recharging, it makes that whole melee idea I had like impossible. But so being able to turn off individual skills like that one particularly really can open up some more build diversity. It's actually a really good thing. I see the reasons you would want it.
Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense, and it definitely helps with the build diversity. Um, the event toggling, let's just talk about the event real quick. Now, I actually didn't catch what the event is. Did they go into specifics about what the event was going to actually entail?
So to a point, basically what they've said, it's okay. So imagine Bloody Harvest, but instead of
Right?
the ghosts, apparently certain enemies are going to have hearts above their head, and if you shoot the hearts, each heart will have a different effect, whether it be taking control of that character, blowing up, or raining a little bit of loot or whatever. So, and then the more hearts that you get for, there's like, remember how in the Bloody Harvest, is more skulls you
Right,
got, you'd get like unlock a
right,
skin or a gun or whatever.
right,
So it's like that,
right.
which is cool.
Is that how they're gonna do? Are they gonna do a map for it like they did, where like you bust enough hearts, you get to go through with Maurice to a map, to a special map?
No, so well, uh, okay. From what they showed and what they talked about, no, which I think is a bit of a problem because,
Yeah, that is.
and because, all right, and a lot of these people are excited about it, and I mean it's cool, but we need content and
Yeah,
call it what you want, but that's not content. That's just, and I get it, it's free, but that is just uh, adding a little mechanic to get a little bit of loot hunting in.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's not really there. It's not a new map. You just run around and find these enemies. So
Well, we're
cool,
gonna get
but
into the new content discussion later. Definitely. We're gonna talk about that. But that bothers me that there's no map. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to get to the right place
yeah,
quickly. Um, so on the event, an upside though of the event is the event toggling. Whether the event is going to be great or not, they have now allowed you to turn it on or off, the effects on the actual world itself. A big Something I loved about the Halloween one, the Bloody Harvest, was how it changed the way you played as an event, and I thought that was very interesting and different. But I see all the complaints. It stuck around too long, and if you were done with the stuff, you still had to deal with all the changes,
yeah,
even though you just kind of wanted the game to get back to what it was. Well, with this new Switch, basically when you're done with the event, you turn it off, and the event no longer affects your world.
correct. Yep. And
I think that
supposedly
I,
this event's only going to be a week long anyways, so it really shouldn't be that big of an issue. But this will be in the future as well, according to what
okay.
they said.
Well, and that sounds really good. I wouldn't mind the event being longer if you could turn it off,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
I loved the Bloody Harvest, but it got old, and then
Mhm.
you were stuck with the results of it. So I understood that. When I reviewed it, actually, I reviewed it really highly, but I had only played it for a week, and it stuck around for 2 months, you know? So, all right. Well, I think that's all the positive that we really need to touch on, unless you had something else you wanted to talk about before we get into the negative.
None of the big points. I mean, there was some other little stuff in there that they
Yeah,
threw in that they do in every hot fix. So, I mean, nothing
right,
worth, going into.
right. Well, I don't want to make a full-sized podcast here. I just want to
Yeah.
keep us on point. So,
One thing
but
I'm glad about
go
in
ahead.
the event that's coming up is we're going to get some
Mhm.
new, at least 2 new guns that they mentioned. So
Yeah,
that anytime you get new weapons, that's a good thing. But, yeah.
that is good. That is good. And then they are continuing to like overhaul things. They're adding stuff to Mayhem, their performance and stability stuff. That's all great. But
Hmm.
that's standard stuff. I don't know that we really need to go into it in depth.
No.
Um, so let's get to the negative. Where do you want to start first? The lack of content, the level cap increase, or the buff nerf situation?
Okay.
I'll let you lead us off because those are the three things we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, we'll start with something that just is annoying to hear them say. Like, they tried to say, oh, if you've he actually said, if you've noticed, we haven't been nerfing as much lately and we've been balancing buffs. Now, I don't know who they are talking to. The only buff that they've put into that game is they buffed a couple of the effects of anointments for Flag and Mose, who still need more. It wasn't enough, but they have never buffed a gun. They have nerfed tons of them. They even
Right,
nerfed the gun that was making fun of them nerfing stuff by the red
right,
text saying fun detected obliterate with the ion cannon. And I'm not
right,
here saying that that gun wasn't overpowered. It was. But if you want to claim that you are balancing your game, why don't you go and buff the lob, the wood blocker, the ASP, like all
right,
these terrible legendaries that are worse than white rarity guns? And I know, guys, that there's been some big time YouTubers that like completed the Malawan raid with the lob only, like Moxie did it, and it was impressive. But that doesn't mean the gun is good. Think of it this way: that
right.
dude clears the raid in 7 minutes. He cleared it with the lob in an hour and 45. So that was just a look how good
It
I
was a
am type
challenge.
thing, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
cool, and he's great at the game and all that, but that doesn't mean that gun is useful. It's a piece of garbage.
I completely agree. I think that the nerfs in this game have been ridiculous, both on the gun side and the character side.
Yeah.
I I really don't like. I really think they need to get out of their head on the whole nerfing or buffing based on character popularity. That's what bugs me, is that they still continue to like shit on Flack because he was one of the most popular characters. And people
Yeah.
like him because they like him. They don't like him because he's overpowered. Maybe he was in the beginning, but like now he's one of the weakest. Amara is easily the strongest character,
Yeah, Marin Zen.
strongest abilities. Yeah, strongest without a doubt. And Amara doesn't get any nerfs, and the reason is I don't. I mean, I'm sure her popularity is coming up now because everybody's realizing how good
Yeah.
she is.
Yeah.
But I think they're using numbers too much to define who they're buffing and who they're nerfing. And I don't even necessarily think they should nerf Amara. I don't necessarily think they should be nerfing anybody. It's a PvP only game. Just buff everyone. Put
Yeah.
everybody on the same level, you know?
Well, from
I don't.
that we can go right into the next thing, because you mentioned how basically what you said is it seems like Gearbox sometimes doesn't know their own game and
Yeah.
understand things. Well, here's another perfect example. And guys, I'm sorry for I've seen some other YouTubers comment on this already, and I want you to understand that the difference between me and some of these big guys who I have all the respect in the world for is that this isn't my job. I'm more like probably more like you
Yeah.
guys who are listening to this right now. So
Yeah.
this is where I come from in that standpoint. Like some of these guys aren't this upset about it because this just makes them more content. So they raised the level cap, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool. Like that's something that's bound to happen, and I have no problem with it. But they freaking raised it by three
Right.
levels. Do you realize like that's not even enough levels to pick up a second capstone? So
Right.
the and Gearbox's defense was that the reason they don't want to go too far is because your characters will become overpowered, which okay, and people are like, okay, that makes sense, and it does. But guess what, Gearbox, if you had your timeline on track, you would have more content coming out that you
Right.
and more mayhem levels to spike the difficulty with the power creep of your characters. So
Right.
if it that's a cop out, you guys need to. It's your job to balance your game. You can't just be like, oh, well, if we do this, it'll be broken. Yeah, it would in its current state. So fix that. Like, in
Right.
my opinion, you just shouldn't have even touched a level cap doing it in this way because all this did was you talk about how you want build diversity. In my opinion, and maybe this will change when I start because I'm not going to quit making builds. I love
Right.
doing it, but I do not honestly think right now that this is going to change any builds. All it's going to do is maybe squeeze a little tiny bit more damage or a little tiny bit more survivability out of some of these builds because 3 points isn't enough to even break a tier open to put one into a next slot.
Right. 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 It's not only that. I just want to add that the only thing that it really seems to do is make your guns completely useless. Make your guns out leveled.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is where you're going next.
Yeah.
Because so now a builder like you has to grind for those guns all over again.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Right.
and they're like, oh, well, it's only 3 levels, so you could use your level 50 guns if you know in the meantime, blah blah blah. Okay, that's great. I probably could. I could probably go in with a level 40 gun on non-mayhem mode, and I'm probably not bragging, but I'm probably good enough that I could wreck the whole game. But I want, as a builder, I'm playing on the hardest content to show you guys the potential of these builds, and
Right.
3 levels is enough to matter. So what you've
Yeah.
done is you just took the 2 months of grinding gear that and anointments that have you have such a little chance of like getting the specifics that you need, and I get that that's part of the game, and I'm cool with grinding. But if this is starting something where they're going to do a small level raise every 2 months, I don't know if my sanity can take it because their argument is that they've increased drop rates and bosses, dropping their what do you call it, specific legendary gear.
Right. Right.
So their attitude is, well, farming's easier. Okay, that's fair enough. However, it's still not easy if you're searching for a god tier role with a specific anointment. You're
Right.
still looking at, I'll say, an average of probably 5 hours per item of grinding.
Yep. Yeah.
And on top of that, a lot of the builds that I did, part of the reason they were so cool is I like to use these epic purple rarity guns. You don't have any specific drop points for those. Those are just world drops. And
Right.
like my Jacob shotgun that I use in my flak build that I found a 25 times projectile, that literally I was looking for that gun. I was using a time 16 that I found actually when I made
Right.
the video. About a month later, I found the perfect roll of it.
Right.
A month. And
Right.
you just took
And
that and threw it away.
right. And that's something that I don't think they understand is the biggest people that are walking away from Borderlands 3 that they need to get back are casuals. The hardcores are going to stay there. They're going to stay there because they've been there. They're going to be there. They were there with Borderlands 2. And as great as Borderlands 2 is, it's busted as hell. It didn't have anywhere near the support that this one does. That's awesome that this one does have that kind of support. But those hardcore guys aren't going anywhere. We, something you said earlier that I want to hammer home is you and I don't do this professionally. We do this when we can. We work very hard at this to try and make this into something. But for right now, you have 2 jobs on top of this. I'm raising a kid on top of this. Like, this isn't something that we're making money at. And that's why it matters so much to us. And that's why people out there, why it's going to matter to those casuals, because they're going to look at this and be like, all you did was make my guns useless. You didn't give me anything special to the actual build.
Yeah.
You didn't give me even enough to go up a tier. All you did was make it so that I had to grind the same content over and over again.
Yeah.
When their biggest complaint is lack of content.
And grinding is not content.
Right.
That's the same thing I've been doing. This is nothing new. And that's like, I hear the YouTubers respond to this, but you guys have to, like Zach said, like, we aren't professionals. We don't get paid to do like just this. So of course those guys, and I'm not dogging on any of them. Like,
I want to make it very clear to anybody out there who is a professional YouTube. We respect what you do completely. You work very hard at this. We're not trying to start any wars or anything. We're just trying to look at this from a common man's point of view.
Yeah, and the problem, like, of course, like, they're cool with it, because think about it. If they got number one, a lot of those guys, they kind of have like teams that help them out to get gear. They don't they do. It's a fact. Obviously, me as a builder, I don't have nobody other than, Zach and maybe a couple buddies I play with online.
Right.
But, and then the other good thing is they're streamers too, half of them. So they can have, that's just more content for them to put out. They can do an 8-hour stream of farming, and you guys, it's good, I guess, if you guys watch streams, that's great, because it gives you more content to watch. But look at it from the perspective as a player who's just an average Joe, like my dumbass, and just see that's where I'm frustrated. Like,
And I completely understand why you're frustrated. I'm frustrated too. I think the biggest thing that keeps me from coming back to this game as well is content. And if they're going to treat this like a games of service, they're going to say this is the game. They're not going to say this is the game, we're done. They're going to say, okay, this is a games of service. We're going to keep dumping these content. You got to keep giving content then. It's just that simple. If they had come out at the beginning and said, we're going to give you the game, we're going to give you 4 DLCs, and we're going to be done, I don't think anybody would be as mad.
No.
Or at least if they were, they wouldn't have a good reason for it. But you guys, like, not you guys, Gearbox announced, hey, we're doing stuff constantly with this game. Okay, if you're doing stuff constantly, then we need to see constant things. All we're seeing right now is kind of stopgaps and floodgates and people getting hyped up about stuff that really isn't that big a deal. A level cap 3, I mean, it screws up our guns, but in the grand scheme of things, what does 3 levels matter? It doesn't. And people are getting really excited about nothing.
Yeah, because this is exactly what it's going to happen. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's going to do this. Whenever this content drops, before I forget, this is another thing that kind of made me upset, was, so Gearbox just had this like increased red chest farm thing where the chest drop legendaries and stuff. Well, when when this event ends is when this new stuff will go into effect. That is the biggest middle finger to everybody that plays this game, because they're like, oh, we're making it easier to get legendaries. The minute we stop, all that stuff you just wasted your time opening red chests and resetting your game for, oh yeah, it's junk.
Yep.
Like, what a middle
exactly
finger
right.
to me and everyone else who plays this game. And
again, I feel like they're looking at the numbers. They're looking at numbers and not listening to feedback as much as they probably should be. We're way over, and I don't want to get into this discussion again, but I've mentioned it a number of times. I think they should be giving us more characters.
Yeah,
I think another character brings in. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, and if a character doesn't come because they claim that nobody wants it, even though everyone that we've ever heard from does, where's that skill tree you guys talked about? Something.
Right. I mean, I think the skill tree is a great idea. I don't think it would bring the casuals back as much as like a new character drop would. I also think that's kind of a cop out when they say the whole everybody just goes back to their old character. Everybody did that in Borderlands 2. That's the numbers that you're basing that off of. That game was in a different ecosystem. Mm-hmm. There weren't any real games of service back then. That wasn't really a thing yet. And you didn't do constant update support. So the reason they went back to their players was the characters that you released were broken and you never fixed them, or they were overpowered and you never fixed them. So they went back to their old characters. If you did that now, you would get the hardcore people involved because they have a whole nother character to make builds for, and every character is worth at least 2 or 3 builds, at least. So that's their content, and you bring the casuals back because they say, oh, a new character, I want to try that out, see if I like that. But they just keep refusing, which is ridiculous. I mean, the skill tree would be something. I agree with you on that. I think that would be cool because you'd get more builds out of it. But in my opinion, that's a way for them to give us content without giving us full new maps or story DLCs, which seems to be what they're struggling with. But we're not getting anything. We're just getting these weird stopgap announcements, which I don't understand the point of it.
And the DLC they dropped was great, but it didn't have any longevity. It was amazing. No. The writing was great. We've talked about that. We loved it.
Yeah, we have.
But it just didn't have, once you beat that, other than grinding out some gear, there was no reason to come back to it. There was no raid boss. There was
no raid.
Mm-hmm. So what they've done,
also still not given us another takedown. They promised us takedowns, more than one takedown. We still have the same Maliwan takedown. We should have 3 or 4 takedowns by now.
And I bet you, if you look into that, that's probably still, like, they love numbers so much. I guarantee you that's the most played thing.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I feel like that's the easiest to make. Like, and I don't know, I can't put myself in a developer's point of view, but the Maliwan takedown has no story. It's literally just a map from point A to point B with some really creative bosses in it. I don't understand why that's so hard to give us. And I don't want to put myself in the developer's shoes, but I feel like there are easy ways to give us new content, and they're choosing not to. And I don't understand why. But we are at 31 minutes. We've gone way over what we promised we would keep this thing to. So let's close it up. Anything else you want to say before we resolve it?
Well, basically, guys, I'll be coming out with some more builds, but what's going to happen is I'm obviously going to wait till this drops, which they didn't give a specific date. I'm assuming it's going to drop this Thursday. If I had to guess, they usually do drop on Thursday, and it would make sense with the whole Valentine's theme. So once that drops, I'll probably go kill Grave Lord 30 times and get my 3 levels. And then I will go farm up some gear and come up with some, either go over a little bit more optimized builds that I already have and come up with some new ones for you guys. I look forward to that. I hope Hope I can find some of the stuff I need.
I mean, everybody looks forward to it, man, but take your time. When you get it done, you get it done. Our fans will stay with us. I hope.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're not going to stay with us, then they weren't going to stay with us. So that is it.
And please feel free to make this a discussion in the comments. Maybe you can talk me down off this.
Hey, if we're wrong, please. I mean, don't come hot and heavy at us, but please, if we're wrong, comment below. We are open to discussion. We are a little upset though, and I think rightfully so. I tend to keep most of my videos having some positive, and even the ones that are mostly negative, we get some positive in there. And we did in the beginning. There are some nice things that they're adding, but
there's a lot of great things. It's just that this particular thing just feels bad.
Yeah, it feels like specifically targeting people to force them to grind again instead of giving them more content, which is upsetting. So, all right, I'm gonna wrap this thing up. Philbilly, anything else to plug, sir?
Not as of now, guys. Hopefully this all works out.
Well, I'm going to keep my plugs short and simple today, and I'm just going to plug stuff we've worked on together. So every Wednesday, you can check back on this channel. Me and the resident Borderlands Expert Philbilly play through Borderlands 3, and that show is called Borderlands 330. We'd love it for you to come and watch our seemingly never-ending journey. And then, of course, check out Saturday, where I force Phil to play games that aren't Borderlands 3, and we get to watch him deal with that situation, which is a lot of fun. That's called Led Astray. And then anything else on the channel, please feel free to like, subscribe, turn the notifications on, and we will see you guys in the future. Thank you very much for listening.
Later, guys.